The sun was setting over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Kia sat on a rock overlooking the vast landscape, his weathered hands holding a small leather pouch. Inside were silver coins, every cent he had managed to save over the past 3 years. The weight of the pouch felt heavy, not because of the silver but because of what he planned to do with it. At 28 years old, Kia had lived through more pain than most men twice his age. His Apache name meant howling wolf. But these days he felt more like a lone coyote, belonging nowhere, trusted by no one. The white settlers feared him because of his heritage, crossing the street when they saw him coming. His own Apache tribe had turned their backs on him years ago when he chose to speak of peace instead of war. "You have forgotten who you are," the tribal elder had told him during their last meeting. "The white man killed your family, burned our sacred places, and you still speak of living in harmony with them." Kia understood their anger. He really did. The cavalry had taken everything from him when he was just 15, his parents, his 2 younger sisters, even his grandmother's precious medicine bundle. For years, rage had burned in his chest like a fire that never died. But his grandmother's last words haunted him. "Hatred will eat your soul from the inside, my grandson. Choose the path of the eagle, not the snake." So he chose differently. He learned English from a kind missionary. He traded fairly with Mexican farmers. He helped lost travelers find their way, regardless of their skin color. But this choice left him stranded between 2 worlds, accepted by neither. Now, as evening shadows grew longer, Kia faced his biggest test yet. Word had spread through the underground networks. There would be an auction tonight in Tucson. Not for cattle or horses, but for people. Desperate families, crushed by debt and starvation, were selling their own children to survive. The very thought made his stomach turn. Yet he couldn't stop thinking about it. How many innocent souls would be bought by cruel men tonight? How many would disappear into lives of misery because no one cared enough to intervene? Kia rose from the rock and walked to his horse, a sturdy paint mare named Thunder. She was getting old like him, but still strong enough for the long ride to town. As he saddled her, his hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what he was about to do. The ride to Tucson took 2 hours through winding, desert trails. Kia knew these paths like the back of his hand. Every cactus, every hidden spring, every place where a man could take shelter if needed. The desert was harsh, but it was honest, unlike the town he was heading toward. Tucson at night was a different creature than during the day. Respectable folks stayed indoors after sunset, leaving the streets to gamblers, drinkers, and those with darker business to conduct. Kia tied Thunder to a post behind a cantina and pulled his hat low over his face. In the shadows, he could pass for just another drifter. The warehouse where the auction was being held sat at the edge of town, away from prying eyes. Kia had learned about it from Diego, a Mexican trader who sometimes bought supplies from him. Diego had looked sick when he shared the information. "It's not right what they're doing," Diego had whispered, "but the law looks the other way. Money talks louder than conscience in this town." Outside the warehouse, Kia paused. Through a crack in the wooden wall, he could see lanterns casting eerie shadows. Voices drifted out, some pleading, others coldly calculating prices like they were discussing livestock. Taking a deep breath, Kia pushed open the heavy door. The scene inside was worse than he had imagined. About 30 people stood around, a makeshift platform, most of them rough-looking men with cruel eyes and expensive boots. On wooden benches along one wall sat families in rags, holding their children close. The desperation in their faces was heartbreaking. Kia found a spot, in the back, trying to blend into the shadows. His heart pounded as he watched the auctioneer, a fat man in a dirty suit, call for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," the man announced with false cheer, "we have some fine young workers available tonight. Strong backs, willing spirits, all priced to move quickly." The first few sales happened fast. A teenage boy went to a mine owner for $50. Twin girls, maybe 12 years old, were bought by a woman who ran a brothel in Phoenix. Each sale felt like a knife twisting in Kia's chest. Then she was brought forward. The girl couldn't have been more than 17, with long dark hair that caught the lamplight. Her dress was clean but worn, patched in several places. What struck Kia most were her eyes, brown like autumn leaves but fierce. Even standing on that terrible platform, she held her chin high. "This here is Elena Martinez," the auctioneer called out. 17 years old, healthy as a horse. Her father got crushed in a mine cave-in, left the family with more debt than they can handle. She can cook, clean, sew, whatever work you need done. Kia saw Elena's hands clench into fists at her sides. She was trying so hard to be brave. "Bidding starts at $20, the auctioneer continued. A voice from the front called out, "25. Kia craned his neck to see who had spoken. It was Jake Morrison, a ranch owner known throughout the territory for his cruelty. He worked his hands to death and was rumored to abuse the women who worked for him. 30, called another voice. 35. From Mr. Morrison. Kia's heart raced. He couldn't let this happen. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. Sometimes the only way to honor the sacred is to act, even when action seems impossible. $50. Kia's own voice surprised him. Every head in the room turned to look at the Apache man, in the back corner. Morrison's face twisted with anger. 60. Kia felt sweat beading on his forehead. His pouch contained exactly $73, his entire life savings. 70. The room fell silent. Morrison looked ready to bid again, but $70 was serious money. He cursed under his breath and turned away. 70 going once, going twice. The auctioneer's hammer fell. Sold to the gentleman in the back. Kia's legs felt weak as he walked forward. Elena watched him approach, her fierce eyes now filled with fear and confusion. What must she be thinking? An Apache warrior had just bought her like a piece of property. In her mind, he was probably planning terrible things. He handed over his coins to the auctioneer, each silver piece feeling like he was giving away a piece of his soul. The fat man counted carefully, then nodded. "She's all yours, friend. Papers are over there if you need them." Kia looked at the papers, a bill of sale like she was a horse or a cow. The sight made him sick. He left them on the table and turned to Elena. "Come," he said quietly in English. "We leave now." Elena hesitated for a moment, then stepped down from the platform. As they walked toward the door, Kia heard Morrison's voice behind them. "You'll regret this, Apache. That girl's going to be nothing but trouble for you." Outside in the cool night air, Elena finally spoke. Her voice shook, but the words were clear. "Are you going to hurt me?" Kia stopped walking and turned to face her. In the moonlight, she looked even younger, and he could see tears threatening to spill from her eyes. His heart broke for what she must be feeling. Sold by her own family, bought by a stranger, facing an unknown future. "No," he said simply. "I will not hurt you. I have a place where you will be safe." "Why should I believe you? You bought me like an animal." Kia nodded slowly. "You are right to not trust, but I had no other choice. If I did not buy you, Morrison would have. You know his reputation?" Elena's face went pale. Everyone in the territory knew about Morrison's ranch, how workers disappeared, how women were found beaten or worse. "Yes," she whispered. "I know." "I could not let that happen," Kia said. "My grandmother taught me that we must protect the innocent, even when we are powerless ourselves." They reached Thunder, and Kia helped Elena climb onto the mare's back. As they rode out of town, Elena remained silent, probably trying to process everything that had happened. Kia didn't blame her for being afraid. In her place, he would feel the same way. The desert at night was beautiful, but dangerous. Coyotes howled in the distance, and somewhere an owl called out. Elena shivered, whether from cold or fear, Kia couldn't tell. He urged Thunder to move faster. They had a long way to go, and he wanted to get Elena to safety before dawn. As they rode, Kia found himself wondering what he had really done tonight. He had saved a girl from a terrible fate, but at what cost? He had spent every cent he owned, And now he was responsible for another human being. A young woman who had every reason to fear and hate him, but when he glanced back at Elena, sitting straight and proud despite everything she had endured, he knew he had made the right choice. His grandmother always said that sometimes the spirits put us in the right place at the right time to do what needs doing. Maybe tonight was one of those times. The first rays of dawn were painting the canyon walls pink and gold when thunder finally stopped. Elena had dozed off during the long ride, her head resting against Kia's back. She woke to find herself in a place that looked like something from a dream. The hidden canyon was like a secret world tucked away from the harsh desert. Green grass grew along a small stream that bubbled over smooth rocks. Cottonwood trees provided shade, their leaves whispering in the morning breeze. Wildflowers bloomed in patches of color, yellow, purple, and white. But what surprised Elena most was the cabin. It wasn't fancy, but it was clearly built with care. The logs fit together perfectly, and the roof looked solid. A small garden grew, beside it with corn, beans, and squash in neat rows. Chickens pecked at the ground in a fenced area, and a goat was tied to a post near a lean-to shelter. "This is your home?" Elena asked, sliding down from the horse. Kia nodded as he unsaddled Thunder. "I built it 3 years ago. The canyon is hidden. Most people do not know it exists." Elena looked around, trying to understand. She had expected to be taken to some rough camp or cave. Instead, she found herself in what looked like a peaceful homestead. "You live here alone?" "Yes. Alone is easier." There was sadness in his voice that Elena didn't expect. She watched him tend to his horse with gentle hands, speaking softly to the mare in Apache. Nothing about this man matched the stories she had grown up hearing about Apache warriors. "You must be tired," Kia said, finishing with Thunder. "And hungry. The cabin has food, clean water, you can rest." Elena hesitated at the cabin door. Once she went inside, what would happen? Would he expect her to? She couldn't finish the thought. Her heart started beating faster. Kia seemed to sense her fear. He stepped back, giving her space. "The cabin is yours," he said quietly. "I sleep outside. You are safe here." "But why? You paid good money for me, don't you expect—" "I expect nothing." Kia's voice was firm. "You are not my slave. You are not my property. You are a person who needed help, and I had the power to help." Elena stared at him, confused. Nothing about this made sense. "Then why did you buy me?" Kia was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the stream. "My family was killed when I was young. My sisters were about your age. If someone could have saved them—" He trailed off, then met her eyes. "I could not save them, but I could save you." Something in his voice made Elena's chest tight. She realized this stranger had risked everything, all his money, possibly his life, for someone he didn't even know. "What if I want to leave?" "Then you leave. But the desert is dangerous for someone alone. Wait until you are stronger. Until you know the safe paths." Elena nodded slowly and pushed open the cabin door. Inside was even more surprising than outside. The main room had a stone fireplace, a wooden table, and 2 chairs. Shelves lined one wall, filled with books, tools, and clay pots. Everything was clean and organized. Through another doorway, she could see a bedroom with a real bed, covered in colorful blankets. When had she last slept in a real bed? Not since before her father's accident, when their small house had been sold to pay debts. "The books," she said, running her fingers along the spines. "You can read?" "Some. A missionary taught me English letters. These are his books. He gave them to me before he died." Elena pulled out a worn Bible, then a book of poems. "I can read too. My father taught me." For the first time since she'd met him, Kia smiled. "That is good. Reading makes the mind strong." Over the next few days, they settled into a careful routine. Elena slept in the cabin while Kia made his bed under the stars. Each morning she would wake to find fresh water waiting for her, and often flowers picked from the canyon walls. Kia was unlike any man Elena had ever met. He moved quietly, spoke softly, and never came too close without permission. When he worked in the garden, he explained what he was doing, which plants needed more water, how to tell when corn was ready to harvest. "My grandmother taught me," he said, kneeling beside a row of beans. "She said the earth is our mother. We must treat her with respect and she will take care of us." Elena found herself helping with small tasks. She had always been good with her hands, and soon she was mending tears in Kia's shirts and helping prepare meals. They ate together at the wooden table, but conversations were careful, polite. "Tell me about your family," Kia asked one evening as they shared rabbit stew. Elena's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. The question hurt, but she found herself answering. "My father worked in the silver mines near Tombstone. He was a good man, always singing, always making my mother laugh." Then the tunnel collapsed. She stopped, the memory still too fresh and painful. "He lived for 3 days after," she continued quietly. "Long enough to see how much money the family owed for doctor bills, for medicine. My mother, she couldn't handle it. She started drinking, couldn't work. My little brother Carlos tried to help, but he's only 14. So your mother sold you to pay the debts?" She cried when she made the decision. Said it was the only way to keep Carlos from starving. Elena's voice cracked. I told her I understood, but inside I felt so angry. How could she choose money over her own daughter? Kia reached across the table and gently touched her hand. The gesture was so unexpected that Elena jumped, but she didn't pull away. "Parents sometimes make impossible choices," he said. "Maybe she thought this was the only way to save you both. By selling me to strangers? To men like Morrison? She could not know I would be there. But I was. The spirits work in strange ways." Elena looked at his weathered face in the lamplight. There was kindness there, and pain that matched her own. "What happened to your family?" Kia withdrew his hand and was quiet for so long that Elena thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Cavalry raid. My father tried to negotiate peace with the soldiers, but their captain was drunk on whiskey and hate. They killed everyone in our camp, men, women, children, elders. I survived only because I was hunting in the mountains." "How old were you?" 15. When I came back, everything was ash and blood." Kia's hands clenched on the table. "I wanted revenge for years. I dreamed of killing every white soldier I could find. But you didn't? My grandmother lived long enough to make me promise. She said hatred would poison my heart, make me no better than the men who killed our family." He looked up at Elena. "It was the hardest promise I ever kept." That night, Elena lay in the comfortable bed thinking about Kia's story. He had lost everything, just like her. But instead of letting bitterness consume him, he had chosen to build something new. This hidden canyon, this peaceful life. It was his way of honoring his family's memory. As days turned into weeks, Elena found herself looking forward to their conversations. Kia was teaching her things she had never imagined. How to track animals by their footprints, which plants could heal wounds. How to read the weather and cloud formations. "Why do you know so much?" she asked one afternoon as he showed her how to weave grass into baskets. "Knowledge keeps you alive in the desert," he said. "But also, learning is a way to honor those who taught you. Every time I use something my grandmother showed me, she lives again." Elena was teaching him things too. Her Spanish was much better than his, and she helped him with reading. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire while she read aloud from the missionaries' books. Kia's English was improving every day. "You have a gift for teaching," he told her one night after she had helped him understand a difficult passage from a book of history. "My father always said I should have been born a teacher instead of a miner's daughter. Maybe you still can be." Elena felt something warm bloom in her chest at his words. When had anyone ever encouraged her dreams before? But even as life in the canyon became more comfortable, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was all temporary. She was living in a borrowed place, dependent on a man's kindness. What happened when he grew tired of helping her? What if someone discovered their hiding place? One morning, she woke to find Kia standing at the edge of the canyon, looking out at the desert beyond. There was something tense in his posture that made her worried. "What is it?" she asked, joining him. Riders passed by yesterday evening, 3 of them, moving fast toward Tucson. So? People travel through the desert all the time. These were not travelers. One was Morrison. Elena's blood went cold. Morrison? But how could he know where we are? He could not. But he might be. Looking. Kia turned to face her. "Elena, I need you to understand something. If dangerous people find this place, I will do whatever it takes to protect you. Even if it means what?" Kia's jaw tightened. "Even if it means I must break my promise to my grandmother about violence." Elena saw the pain in his eyes and realized how much it would cost him to fight again. This man who had chosen peace over revenge would give up everything to keep her safe. In that moment, something shifted inside her heart. This wasn't just about gratitude anymore, or even about finding shelter from a harsh world. Somewhere along the way, without her even noticing, Kia had become precious to her. "I hope it doesn't come to that," she said softly. "So do I." 3 months had passed since that night in Tucson, and life in the canyon had found its rhythm. Elena's hands had grown strong from helping with daily tasks, and her face had lost the pale, frightened look of someone who had been living on the edge of starvation. She laughed now, especially when Kia told stories about his childhood or when the goat escaped and caused chaos in the garden. But everything changed on a Tuesday morning in September. Elena woke feeling wrong. Not sick exactly, but strange. Her head felt heavy, and when she tried to stand up from the bed, the room spun around her. She managed to walk outside, where Kia was feeding the chickens. "Good morning," he called out cheerfully. "I picked fresh apples from the tree by the stream. I thought we could—" He stopped talking when he saw her face. Elena was pale as winter snow, swaying on her feet. "What is wrong?" he asked, dropping the chicken feed and moving toward her. "I don't know, I feel—" Elena's words were cut off as she suddenly collapsed. Kia caught her before she hit the ground, his heart hammering with fear. Her skin was burning hot, and her breathing was shallow and fast. He had seen this kind of fever before. It could kill a person if it got bad enough. Carefully, he carried Elena back to the bed and began the work of trying to save her life. For 3 days, Elena drifted in and out of consciousness while the fever raged through her body. Kia never left her side. He used every remedy his grandmother had taught him: willow bark tea to bring down the fever, cool cloths on her forehead, prayers whispered in Apache. When Elena was awake, she often didn't recognize where she was. Sometimes she called out for her father in Spanish, begging him not to go into the mine that last day. Other times she cried for her mother, asking why she had been sold. "Mamá, por favor," she whispered during the worst night. "No me vendas, no me dejes. Don't sell me. Don't leave me." Kia held her hand and spoke softly in both English and Apache, telling her she was safe, that he would not let anything hurt her. He didn't know if she could hear him, but he hoped his voice might anchor her somehow. On the 4th morning, Elena's fever finally broke. She opened her eyes to find Kia asleep in a chair beside the bed, his hand still holding hers. He looked exhausted. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Kia," she whispered. His eyes snapped, open immediately. "Elena, how do you feel?" "Weak, but better." She tried to sit up, but her body felt like it belonged to someone else. "How long was I sick?" 3 days. He stopped and looked away. "I was afraid you might die." Elena saw something in his face that made her heart skip. This wasn't just the concern of one person helping another. This was deeper, more personal. "You stayed with me the whole time?" "Of course. You needed care." But you barely know me. Kia was quiet for a moment, still holding her hand. I know you better than you think. I know you sing while you work in the garden. I know you worry about your brother, Carlos. I know you have nightmares about that auction house. Elena felt tears starting in her eyes. Why do you care so much? Because, Kia struggled with the words, because somewhere along the way you stopped being someone I helped and became someone I... He didn't finish, but Elena understood. The feeling had been growing in her too. Something warm and strong that she had never experienced before. Someone... You what? She asked softly. Someone I care about more than I should, maybe. Elena's heart was beating fast, but not from fever this time. Why more than you should? Kia gently pulled his hand away and stood up. Because I am Apache and you are not. Because the world will never accept us together. Because I bought you at an auction and people will always say I took advantage of you. But you didn't take advantage, you saved my life. Did I? Or did I just move you from one impossible situation to another? Elena managed to sit up in bed even though it made her dizzy. Look at me, Kia. Reluctantly, he turned back to face her. You gave me a choice from the very first day. You could have demanded anything from me. I was completely in your power. Instead, you gave me safety, respect, and kindness. You taught me things that made me stronger. You never once made me feel like I owed you something. But you do owe me something. I paid $70 for you? Elena's eyes flashed with anger, the first real fire Kia had seen in her since she'd been sick. Is that what you think? That I'm here because I feel guilty about money? Aren't you? Elena threw off the blankets and tried to stand up. Her legs were still wobbly, but she was determined. You think I stayed here for 3 months, learned your language, shared meals with you, told you about my family, just because I felt like I had to pay you back? Elena, you should rest. No, I need to say this. She took a shaky step toward him. I stayed because I wanted to. I helped in the garden because I liked working beside you. I looked forward to our talks in the evening because your voice made me feel peaceful. Kia stared at her, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. And when I was sick, Elena continued, I heard you talking to me. I heard you reading from your grandmother's favorite prayers. I felt your hand holding mine. That's what brought me back. Not medicine, not fever breaking. You. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken feelings. Elena, Kia said finally, even if we both feel something, what kind of future could we have? Where could we go? I don't know, but I know I don't want to figure it out without you. Something broke open in Kia's chest. All the careful distance he had been maintaining, all the reasons why this couldn't work, all the fear of hoping for too much. It all crumbled in the face of Elena's honesty. He crossed the small room in 2 steps and gently cupped her face in his hands. Are you sure? Once we cross this line, there is no going back. I've never been more sure of anything. When Kia kissed her, it was soft and careful, like he was afraid she might disappear. Elena melted into him, her arms coming up to wrap around his neck. She had never been kissed before, but somehow this felt like coming home. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. I love you, Elena whispered. I know it's crazy. I know it doesn't make sense. But I love you. Kia rested his forehead against hers. I love you too. I have for weeks, but I was afraid to admit it, even to myself. They spent the rest of that day talking about everything they had been holding back. Elena told him about the dreams she'd had as a child, to see the ocean, to learn to read books in English as well as she read Spanish, to maybe have children someday who would grow up safe and loved. Kia shared his own dreams, to build a real homestead, to raise horses, to find a place where he could live without hiding who he was. Maybe we could do those things together, Elena said as they sat by the stream in the afternoon sunshine. She was still weak, but insisting she felt well, enough to be outside. Maybe we could. That evening, they sat closer together than they ever had before. Elena's head was on Kia's shoulder as he read aloud from one of the books. The words washed over her, but she was more focused on the steady rhythm of his breathing, the warmth of his body next to hers. Kia? When I was delirious with fever, I called out for my mother, didn't I? Yes. What did you do? I told you that you were safe, that someone loved you and would not let you be hurt. Elena lifted her head to look at him. Did you mean it? About someone loving me? Kia set down the book and turned to face her fully. I meant every word. They made love that night for the first time, gentle and slow, with the canyon walls keeping, their secrets and the stars watching over them. Afterward, Elena curled up against Kia's chest, listening to his heartbeat. What happens now? She asked. Now we face whatever comes next. Together. But even as they held each other in the darkness, both of them knew that their happiness couldn't last forever in this hidden place. The world beyond the canyon still existed, with all its prejudices and dangers, and sooner or later that world would find them. For now, though, they had each other and this perfect moment. Love had found them in the most unlikely circumstances, and that love was strong enough to face whatever challenges lay ahead. At least they hoped it was. Elena and Kia had been living as a couple for 2 months when their peaceful world came crashing down. It was a crisp morning in late November, with frost sparkling on the grass by the stream. Elena was hanging laundry on a rope stretched between 2 cottonwood trees when she heard horses approaching. Her blood turned to ice. No one knew about this canyon. No one should be able to find them here. Kia, she called, dropping the wet shirt she was holding. He emerged from the lean-to where he had been repairing a broken saddle, already reaching for the rifle he kept nearby. But when the riders appeared at the canyon entrance, he lowered the weapon, in shock. Leading the group was a young man who looked so much like Elena that there could be no mistake. Behind him rode 2 older men, Mexican ranchers by the look of their clothes and equipment. Carlos? Elena whispered, hardly believing her eyes. Her 14-year-old brother had grown taller in the months since she'd seen him, but his face was thinner, harder. When he saw her, his expression twisted with a mixture of relief and rage. Elena, thank God you're alive. He slid down from his horse and ran toward her, but stopped when he noticed Kaya standing nearby. Get away from her, Apache! Carlos, wait, Elena started. No, look what he's done to you. Carlos's young voice cracked with emotion. You're living with him like his woman. This is not the sister I remember. Elena felt her cheeks burn, but she lifted her chin defiantly. You don't understand. I understand plenty. Carlos turned to face Kia, his hand moving to the knife at his belt. You bought my sister like she was cattle. Then you brought her to this place and used her. Kia raised his hands peacefully. I have never hurt Elena. She stays here by her own choice. Choice? Carlos laughed bitterly. What choice does a woman have when she's completely dependent on a man? When she's trapped in the middle of nowhere? One of the older men, Elena recognized him as Don Roberto, a family friend, dismounted and walked closer. Carlos is right to be concerned, Nina, he said gently. Your mother has been sick with worry. She sent us to find you and bring you home. Home? Elena shook her head. What home? The house was sold to pay debts. Mama barely has enough to feed herself. Things have changed, Don Roberto said. Your mother has been working for my wife, keeping house. She saved enough money to rent a small place in Tucson. She wants her family back together. Elena's heart lurched. Part of her longed to see her mother again, to know that she was safe and sober. But the thought of leaving Kia, of returning to the world that had sold her in the first place, made her feel sick. I can't go back, she said quietly. Elena, please, Carlos begged. Look at yourself. You're living like a savage in the wilderness with a man who loves me. Elena's voice rang out across the canyon. Who treats me with respect and kindness. Who has never once made me feel like anything less than a whole person. Carlos's face went white. Love? You think this is love? He bought you, Elena. He owns you. No one owns me, Elena said firmly. And yes, this is love. Real love. Kia stepped forward, though he kept his movements careful and non-threatening. Carlos, I understand your anger. If someone had taken my sister, I would feel the same way. Don't you dare compare yourself to me, Carlos snarled. You're nothing like me. You are right. I am Apache, you are Mexican. But we both love Elena. That should count for something. Love? Carlos spat. You don't love her. You're using her. When you get tired of her, you'll throw her away like garbage. Elena saw Kia flinch as if he'd been struck. The words hit exactly where Carlos had intended them to, at Kia's deepest fears about their relationship. That's enough, Elena said, moving to stand beside Kia. Carlos, you're my brother and I love you, but you don't get to speak to him like that. Elena, he's poisoned your mind, Don Roberto said sadly. You were always such a good girl, so devoted to your family. This man has changed you. Yes, he has changed me, Elena agreed. He's made me stronger. He's taught me that I'm worth something more than whatever price someone will pay for me. He's shown me what it means to be treated as an equal partner, not just property. The second rancher, who had stayed mounted and silent until now, finally spoke up. This is all very touching, but we need to be practical. Girl, you can't stay here forever. What happens when winter comes? What happens if you get pregnant? What happens when other Apaches find this place and decide they want the woman for themselves? Kia's jaw tightened. I would die before I let anyone hurt Elena. Maybe, the rancher said. But you're just one man, and whether you want to admit it or not, you've put her in danger by keeping her here. Elena felt doubt creeping into her heart. Were they right? Had her love for Kia blinded her to the real dangers of their situation? Elena, Carlos said, his voice gentler now. I've been looking for you for months. Do you know what I went through? Do you know how many sleepless nights Mama has had, wondering if you were dead or alive? The guilt hit Elena like a physical blow. In her happiness with Kia, she had almost forgotten about the family she'd left behind. Her mother was probably terrified, imagining all kinds of horrible fates for her eldest daughter. I didn't think, she stammered. Come home. With us, Carlos pleaded. If this man really loves you, he'll let you go. All eyes turned to Kia. Elena could see the struggle in his face, his love for her warring with his desire to keep her safe, his need to hold on to her battling with his respect for her freedom to choose. Elena must decide for herself, he said finally. I will not force her to stay and I will not force her to go. But what do you want? Elena asked him directly. If I leave with them, what will you do? Kia was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the canyon that had been their sanctuary. I will probably go north into Apache territory, try to make peace with my people. Without me. Without you. The thought of him leaving this place, of going back to a tribe that had rejected him, of facing whatever punishment awaited him there, it broke Elena's heart. But the thought of her mother crying herself to sleep, of Carlos having to carry the burden of holding their family together, that broke her heart too. I need time to think, she said. Don Roberto shook his head. We cannot wait long, Nina. Winter storms are coming and the journey back to Tucson is dangerous. One day, Elena said. Give me until tomorrow morning. Carlos looked like he wanted to argue, but Don Roberto nodded. One day. But we camp here tonight. I won't leave you, alone with him while you make this decision. That evening was the most awkward of Elena's life. The three men made their camp on the far side of the canyon, while Elena and Kia sat by their usual spot near the stream. But everything felt different now. The magic of their hidden world had been broken by the reality of the outside world. What are you thinking? Kia asked as they watched the sunset paint the canyon walls. I'm thinking that I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person, Elena said. And I'm thinking that love might not be enough. Kia nodded sadly. Your brother is right about some things. I have been selfish, keeping you here. You deserve a real life, not just hiding in a canyon. This feels like a real life to me. But what about children? What about growing old somewhere you can have friends, community? What about seeing your family? Elena wiped away a tear. What about you? If I go back to Tucson, will you be happy in Apache territory? Will they accept you, after all these years of choosing peace over war? Probably not. But I survived alone before. I can do it again. I don't want you to be alone. I don't want you to be trapped. They held each other that night, but neither of them slept much. When morning came, Elena felt like she had aged years in a single night. Carlos and the ranchers were packing up their camp when Elena finally spoke. "I'll come with you," she said quietly. Kia's face went completely still. "Are you certain?" "No. But I think it's the right thing to do. My family needs me. And maybe you're right. Maybe I've been hiding here instead of really living." "Elena, no," Carlos started to say, but she held up her hand. "I'm coming with you. But there are conditions. First, no one speaks badly about Kia in front of me. Ever. He saved my life and treated me with nothing but respect and love." Carlos nodded reluctantly. "Second, this is my choice. Not Mama's, not yours, not anyone else's. If I decide I want to come back here, you won't try to stop me. But Elena, promise me, Carlos, or I stay right here." "I promise," he said finally. Elena turned to Kia. "And you, promise me you won't do anything foolish. Don't go looking for fights with the cavalry or with your old tribe. Stay alive because maybe this isn't forever." Kia cupped her face gently. "I promise. And Elena, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. No matter what comes next. These months with you have been worth everything." They kissed one last time while Carlos looked away in embarrassment, and the ranchers pretended not to see. As Elena mounted one of the horses, her heart felt like it was being torn in half. She was doing the right thing. She knew she was. But watching Kia grow smaller as they rode out of the canyon was the hardest thing she had ever done. Halfway to the canyon entrance, she turned back for one last look. Kia was still standing, where they had left him alone among the cottonwood trees. The sight nearly made her change her mind. The reunion with her mother was both wonderful and heartbreaking. Elena found her in a small adobe house on the outskirts of Tucson, looking older and thinner, but sober. When she saw Elena, she burst into tears and held her daughter for what felt like hours. "Mia, I thought I had lost you forever," she whispered. "I have regretted every day since I let you go." Elena forgave her mother, but something had changed between them. The girl who had been sold at auction was gone, replaced by a woman who had learned her own worth. Elena helped with cooking and cleaning, but she also made it clear that she would not be anyone's servant, not even her family's. The weeks passed slowly. Elena tried to settle back into town life, but everything felt wrong. The noise of the streets hurt her ears after months in the peaceful canyon. The constant presence of other people made her feel suffocated. Worst of all, the way men looked at her made her skin crawl. Word had spread about where she had been and who she had been with. Some people whispered that she was ruined now, unfit for any decent man. Others suggested she had been Apache all along, that her dark hair and skin were proof of mixed blood. Elena ignored the talk as best she could, but it wore at her spirit like water wearing a waystone. Carlos, meanwhile, had become fiercely protective of her reputation. When a man at the market made a crude comment about Apache women, Carlos challenged him to a fight. Elena had to pull her hot-headed brother away before blood was shed. "You can't fight everyone who says something stupid," she told him later. "I won't let them disrespect my sister," Carlos replied stubbornly. "Then you'll be fighting forever, because people will always talk." 2 months after leaving the canyon, Elena was helping her mother in the small garden behind their house when she heard a commotion in the street. Shouting, running footsteps, the sound of horses moving fast. "What's happening?" Elena's mother asked, wiping dirt from her hands. Elena was already moving toward the front of the house. She opened the door to see people gathering in the street, all talking excitedly. Her heart started pounding for no reason she could name. "What's going on?" she called to her neighbor, Senora Garcia. "Bandits attacked a supply wagon north of town," the woman called back. "But someone stopped them. An Apache warrior, they say. Killed 2 of the bandits and chased off the rest." Elena's blood went cold. An Apache? Which Apache? Nobody knows his name, but they say he was traveling alone, heading toward the mountains. The wagon driver said he appeared like a ghost, fought like a demon, then disappeared just as quick. Elena's hands were shaking. It could be anyone. There were hundreds of Apache warriors. It didn't have to be Kia, but somehow deep in her heart she knew it was. That evening she couldn't eat dinner. She paced the small house like a caged animal, unable to sit still. "What's wrong with you tonight?" Carlos asked. "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." Her mother looked at her with knowing eyes. "You're thinking about him." Elena stopped pacing. Her mother rarely mentioned Kia directly, but Elena could see she was not as disapproving as she pretended to be. "Every day," Elena admitted. "I wonder if he's safe, if he's eating enough, if he's found peace with his people, and if he thinks about you." "I hope so." "Is that selfish?" Elena's mother reached out and took her daughter's hand. "Love is never selfish, mija. Foolish, maybe. Dangerous, certainly, but not selfish." That night, Elena lay awake staring at the ceiling. For months she had been trying to convince herself that leaving Kia was the right choice. But the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. She was miserable without him. This wasn't living. It was just surviving. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Carlos came running into the house, his face flushed with excitement and fear. "Elena, you need to pack. Now." "What? Why?" "Morrison is coming. He's been asking questions about you around town, saying you belong to him, by rights. He's got men with him and they're drunk and angry." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Morrison, the man who had tried to buy her at the auction, the man Kia had outbid. Somehow he had learned she was back in Tucson. "We have to get you out of here," Carlos continued. "Don Roberto says you can stay at his ranch until Morrison moves on." "No," Elena said firmly. "I'm tired of running. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of living my life according to what other people think I should do." "Elena, be reasonable," her mother pleaded. "Morrison is dangerous. He could hurt you or worse." "Then maybe it's time to stop letting dangerous men control my choices." That afternoon, Elena walked out of Tucson alone, carrying a small pack and her father's old hunting knife. She ignored her family's protests, ignored the stares of neighbors, ignored everything except the pull in her heart that was calling her home. Home. Not to this town where she would always be whispered about, not to her mother's house where she would always be treated like a fragile thing that might break. Home to a hidden canyon where she had found love and respect and peace. The journey took her 3 days. She followed paths Kia had taught her, found water at springs he had shown her, slept under stars that had witnessed their love. Every step felt like she was becoming herself again. But when she finally reached the canyon, her heart sank. The cabin stood empty, the garden overgrown with weeds. Kia was gone, just as she had feared. Elena sat down by the stream and cried. She had given up everything to come back to him, and he wasn't here. Maybe he had gone north to Apache territory as he'd planned. Maybe he had been killed in that fight with the bandits. Maybe he had simply moved on, found a new place to hide from the world. As the sun began to set, Elena heard footsteps behind her. She turned, hoping against hope, and there he was. Kia looked thinner than she remembered, and there was a new scar on his left cheek, but his eyes were the same, and when he saw her, they filled with wonder and joy. "Elena, is it really you?" She ran to him and he caught her in his arms, spinning her around like she weighed nothing. When he set her down, they were both crying. "I thought you were gone forever," she gasped between kisses. "I thought I would never see you again." "I was preparing to leave," Kia admitted. "I could not bear to stay here with all the memories, but something kept telling me to wait one more day, just one more day. I'm sorry I left, I'm sorry I hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. You were not wrong. You needed to see your family, to know that world was still there for you. But Elena," he held her face gently in his hands, "if you stay with me now, it has to be forever. I cannot lose you again." I don't want to go back to that world, Elena said. I don't belong there anymore. I belong here. With you. They talked long into the night, sharing everything that had happened during their separation. Kia told her about his lonely weeks in the canyon, about the supply wagon he had saved from bandits, about his decision to head north until something made him change his mind. Elena told him about her time in Tucson, about the whispers and stares, about Morrison's threats, about her growing certainty that she had made a terrible mistake. What about your family? Kia asked. They will worry. I left them a letter. They know I'm safe, and they know this is my choice. Carlos will be angry, but he'll understand eventually, and my mother. Elena smiled. I think she understands already. As they rebuilt their life together in the canyon, Elena and Kia began to hear stories from other travelers. There were other places like their hidden canyon, other communities where mixed couples had found acceptance. People who had been rejected by the mainstream world were creating their own societies, their own rules. One day, an elderly Apache woman arrived at their canyon, traveling with a Mexican man who was obviously her husband. Elena tensed, expecting conflict, but the woman smiled when she saw them. I am Ayana, she said in careful English. I have heard stories of the Apache man and Mexican woman who live in harmony. I wanted to see if the stories were true. They are true, Elena said, stepping closer to Kia. We love each other. Ayana nodded approvingly. Love that crosses boundaries is the strongest love of all. It takes courage to choose your heart over your tribe. Are there others like us? Kia asked. Many others. In hidden valleys throughout these mountains, people are building new kinds of families, Apache with Mexican, white with native, black with white, all the combinations the outside world says are impossible. Ayana stayed with them for a week, sharing stories of these mixed communities. She told them about a place called Valley of the Three Rivers, where families like theirs had built a thriving settlement. Would we be welcome there? Elena asked. More than welcome. You would be celebrated. The journey to the Valley of the Three Rivers took 2 weeks, but it was the most hopeful travel Elena had ever experienced. As they got closer, they began to meet other travelers, families and couples who looked like them, who had similar stories of love conquering prejudice. The valley itself was breathtaking. A river ran through the center with fertile farmland on either side. Adobe houses dotted the landscape, and Elena could see children playing in the streets, children who looked Apache, Mexican, white, black, and every combination imaginable. Ayana's husband, whose name was Joaquin, led them to the community center, a large building where